So without saying any more, Justin Michael, welcome to the show, man.
Yeah, thanks for having me on. I mean, when I think of predictable revenue, I think of 2011, that dream that I'd work for Salesforce and, reading about folks like Eli Cohen and reading about Aaron Ross and predictable revenue, reading the book multiple times, Spears and Nets. And, I loved it. And so ever since that time, I've been hooked and really a top funnel specialist, worked for some famous companies like LinkedIn and Salesforce. Actually sold Sales Navigator from the Empire State Building. I had a stint working for Sean Parker on some nonprofit stuff, which was super interesting. He was in a Tolkien phase with his staff and in character and very humble, smart dude. I've just done a lot of SaaS companies over the last 13 years. I've been in sales for 20 years. I just turned 40. I don't say like I'm the best seller around. It's just I've had a real knack for cracking the top funnel. So worked for some tiny companies no one's heard of, landed impossible meetings with all the companies we all wish we could meet with. I've been on site, right? I've pulled in the valet and, some of these giant companies and just became obsessed with those tactics of the top funnel. So there's like an international search that happened. There's a group of engineers that were going to go build an artificial intelligence model to go replace SDRs. Don't worry, it's we're not there yet. More 2035. And one of the co-founders of Data9 is Ben Sardella, who has an awesome consultancy now called RevShop that does sales ops consulting for SalesLoft and outreach. He got named #1 in the world by InsideSales.com. There's Zant now. And really humbling, I got picked to kind of fly to San Francisco and have, a dozen engineers just listen to this for 3 hours and try to turn into code. And fast forward, we took on 100 concurrent clients, hundreds of outreach sequences, acquired a company that was a Swedish artificial intelligence personalization injection engine. Get that one out on the whiteboard. But essentially, we could map connections in common at scale. So I could send 1,000 emails and I could programmatically prioritize our connections in common and inject personalization around demographics, psychographics, and technographics. And it was real. So we saw conversion rates and reply rates and open rates go through the roof, and was very lucky to work with folks like Lars Nilsson at Salesforce, who's an advisor at True Ventures. And since that time, I've been in the mobile marketing niche. I'm currently a regional vice president for UAPI, which is a retargeting company in Tel Aviv. Like if you forget your burger in your cart on Postmates, we will find you because you want your burger, right? I feel like it's not that invasive, but I do mobile in-app retargeting. And then I'm just sort of an armchair philosopher. I've been writing a book called Technology Quotient. People have been saying during this crisis, we need AQ, right? Adaptation quotient. There's EQ, there's IQ, there's this thing called TQ. What I've found, like reps like Rob on the phone here, is some of the best reps they've gone all in. They figured out outreach and SalesLoft and programming their emails, and they're making money while they sleep. And what I mean by that is there's only so much we can do manually every day. And then there's this whole other stream of reps, like check the box, put one email in, send 50,000 emails, and they don't get the result. Because it's actually really hard and time consuming to use the automation. And my book is a call for like deep personalization, learning your tech, getting as good as you can be. We're all stranded right now, remote at home. We can't move. And we've got this dusty tech stack. It might not be the best, but it's going to make us more powerful than if we just operate manually. So that's what I've got for my opener. I would just say for 1 million emails, just like a caveat here, like that's 1 million emails for like hundreds of customers over a year, 1,000 contacts per, under 100 to 250 cents per Gmail per day, can spam compliantly. Like, I can read you a Bible of rules about how we did it right, even before kind of the current climate.
For sure. And, you got to put a catchy title in there because you want to get people interested. And I think there aren't that many people in the world that have experience running 450 simultaneous clients. And so that's sort of how we get up to that million email number, right? Like every single one was following email, like best practices that we all are. It's just you were doing it at such extreme scale.
Yeah, so I had a team of 10 in 9 different countries. I had every data source. So what's so cool about the book is I have like 400 thought leaders in there crowdsourcing it. And you can go in there, and if you're on this call and you find me, Justin Michael, on LinkedIn, you ping me, give me your email address. I'll temporarily give you the book for free. Hopefully you buy it later on Kindle when I release it with HarperCollins. It's a co-write with Tony J. Hughes, who did combo prospecting. I've just been in the shadows for about 20 years, just an operator, just a seller, just reading all these books, participating. But when Combo was written, I was part of the case study in that as kind of the cyborg, and Tony Hughes put that out there as well. And especially with everything going on today, I just feel like called to share, to open source all the power user manuals. Like, not just like, here's why you should use a sequencer or write a cadence, but I find that the job of top funnel cracking right now is like, you're sitting at a computer, you're looking at Sales Navigator, trying to target the exact people you want to sell to. Then you can't get emails out of Navigator. So then you're like, okay, I need a data source. So you're in Zoom Info or LeadIQ or Seamless. And then it's like, well, I could only call and email so many people per day. My calling data is 20% off. My email data is 20% off. So there's like this grooming process of hygiene. And then you're trying to program these sequences, manage the opt-outs. If you're a field AE, you're working with your SDR, you're trying to hand off. And then it just becomes brutal, because if you look at the Bridge Group statistics, 75% of time is spent on all the administration of your tooling. And I think companies in the Valley are spending about $1,000 per rep per month on the tooling. Growth companies, about 15%. So I think it's like 36% of a seller's time is selling. And then like 50% of reps are hitting quota. And that's happening because of the secondary markets, right? Not a lot of IPOs. We don't like, I'm not going to mention the big company, but you have the IPO, everybody reads what's going on, and it's sometimes a bad outcome, right? So people are pumping money, VCs pump money into secondary markets. So in 2019, 40% of the funding rounds were $100 million rounds. If you think about it, you're like, wow, they raised 100, they raised 100. 100's the new 10. Problem is, SDRs are sticking around for 1.6 years. They want to be promoted to AE because the money and the commissions on AE, it's in the company's interest to push people to AE because they close the big ticket and get the margin. So you have a lot of forces moving, right? This is what is creating the pressure on the top of the funnel and making it harder than ever. So I can go forever on this topic, but I want to stay on course.
For sure. And I'd love to sort of zoom in on your time at Upbound Works, because just managing that many clients, that much outreach at scale, it sounds like it started very largely digital. But when we were talking, in our pre-interview, you had mentioned that digital selling doesn't work anymore. So like, talk to me a little bit about those ideas there.
So the first really cool thing is I was working with some of the smartest people in the world, and I was working every waking hour. So you're talking, more than 100 hours a week, like every waking hour on every time zone, which is something that I'm kind of known for. It's not sustainable. I'm not trying to do the hustle promotion here, Gary Vee, but at the end of the day, there are certain TAMs, total addressable markets. There's certain ICPs, ideal customer profiles. There's certain personas. There's certain company types that can be unlocked with pure sequencing and digital. Now, there's also been a change, right? If you're doing Fortune 1000 and there's 200 CMOs and you're selling them advertising technology, in 2012, there was 234 SaaS vendors selling to those 200. Now there's 7,200 vendors in Loopscape. So you have a Cambrian explosion, right? Like the Pleistocene, the dinosaur era, like when all the, you have this explosion of vendors. Like Delaney did it with Tenbound. You've got this vendor ecosystem. So the salespeople have all this tooling to blast. Your prospect has 250 messages in their box, right? And so much sameness and noise. So like, Corona comes out, and then we have like, hope you're doing well is like, hope you're hanging in there. So we're all just doing the same email again. So the big thing for me is pattern interrupts and developing those effectively. I think phone is really critical. Throughout my book, I talk about social signals. Someone views your profile. All of the major sequencers, and I wouldn't check out just Outreach and SalesLoft and Xant. There's about 25 other players. They're all listed. Use pixel tracking. They fire a pixel and like a link so you can see how many opens. You can set up tasks and rule sets to automatically drop, like a rule set 3. Someone opens your email 3 times, that's a view. Maybe 4 times they referred it. 5, 6, 7, 8 times. This is where I had someone open my email 12 times in Yesware, did a $150K deal, like 45 days. They're like, great data-driven approach. And I was just radical. I'm like, yeah, I'm tracking my email. You've opened this 6 times. Like, you're interested. I'm like, yeah, we are. And we just did the deal. So phone is super critical, I think, for the signals coming out of digital, because not everybody can just be closed purely out of email. So this is not the book to say social selling versus email, or let's all blast on the sequencers, or let's go volume. It's actually just talking about your entire stack, including you're on a phone.
Yeah, and I think To add on that, like you're 100% right. There are some people that prefer digital as a medium, and there are some people that will engage with your digital, they're interested, but they're not going to convert, whether they are busy or they just forgot, or some people just don't reply to emails. And so I love that you're using those signals and sort of putting them into other medium, other channels, and sort of getting that like 1 + 1 = 3 element there.
Yeah, and I had a chance to test drive the Ferrari or the Bazooka or whatever, like do full parallel assisted dialing. And I'm hearing about parallel assisted dialing since 2007, the early days of SaaS, like Connect and So. Basically, like thousands of calls are being made on this data set, and then they hot switch the callers. So you sit there and you're like, dude, and you're live.
Yeah.
And it's wild. It's like a time capsule, because in the old days, like when I was 27, I would pick up the phone. I'd get 7 people out of 10. I would just call and I would get executive directors. I just work phone trees all day. The problem now is contact rates are under 5%, under 2%. And my phone rings all day and says spam caller, robocaller, spam caller, and then I'll pick it up and it's like Zoom info. It's a good rep that I would want to talk to. Mm-hmm. And so in limit, what I've found is if you don't have a power dialer like Connect and Sell, Connect Leader, or Orem, and there's comments about all of it in my book, TQ, because those are somewhat of a significant investment. The goal of it is like really combo prospecting and the triple touch. And this is research that comes from Jeb Blunt of Fanatical Prospecting and Craig Rosenberg from Topo Research. Love Craig, which is basically the best SDRs. And I've coached them and worked with them, are doing triples, quads, and quints. They're combining platforms fast. Call, voicemail, email. And it's because everyone has a phone. So everyone has a phone is avoiding you, but you can swarm the phone. So you call the phone, it buzzes in the pocket. You leave a message, it buzzes again. You do an email, it buzzes again. You hit the tweet, it buzzes again. You hit the link. Okay. Whoa. Remove, refer, no, yes. Hey, you remind me of me. Can I hire you? I mean, this is the kind of like, maybe it's like 5 stages of grief of receiving outreach from me, but I'm like the tide. I don't do sequencers like a person. It's not like day 1, day 3, day 7. It's every 48 hours. Like I'm moving in. The only purpose of my communication is that I'm going to contact you. And that's why I got the nickname, the honey badger, or the machine, or the hummingbird. I haven't had a restraining order or any problem with that, because the minute I get the opt-out, I'm out. And I'm going to ask you, if you say no, refer, because I proved over 1 million emails that a negative reaction is positive. Like nature abhors a vacuum. Silence is not golden. So like my CRO, if he gives me 50 accounts in a quarter, I'll tell him or her where the 50 accounts are, because I will press so hard, they will all respond. So, I mean, I call that assertive because it's laced in honey. It's finesse. It's, not like checking in, bubbling up. Did a crocodile eat you? It's here's a white paper. Here's another insight. Or, right? We have to be. This is the best. This rep got really frustrated and quit one day, and he sent Justin Bieber's "What Do You Mean?" and the whole lyrics and nothing else, just blank email, and it closed. They thought it was hilarious. They came in. It was like a major deal. Thousands of reps on my team heard about this. That's got to be my favorite ever. That rep's a legend.
That's amazing. I think one of my favorites, just if we're going that route, and then I'll come back because I got a question here for you, was a guy, and it was Scott Barker from, he's at Sales Hacker Outreach. And he took his cold call script and then he like role played it out. And he's like, I just left you a voicemail, but like here's the transcript of the cold call we would have had, and just like wrote it out as if it was a script, like a script for a movie or a TV show in the email, sent it off, and like crazy conversion rate.
That's awesome. I mean, I talk a lot about stunts and contact marketing and a lot of things we used to be able to do in a human world before we were all virtual. And I'm trying to retrofit the book now. Stu Heineke and How to Get a Meeting with Anyone, a cartoonist for the Wall Street Journal. He sends these huge poster boards, no logos, of this like great cartoon starring Colin or Aaron Ross, and he sends it by mail and he spends all this money on it. It's awesome.
That's hilarious.
But we've done stunts like, have a competitor send a piece of cake, send a drone, you get the remote control if you respond. I'll never forget, I think I was raffling off a VR drone, and I just had a fishbowl, and I walked around an entire conference and I got like 900 business cards. And, I kind of look ridiculous doing it, but stunts, big fan, neighborhood techniques. And so now it's this like universe of virtual meetings. So how do we retrofit it? And that's why I'm chatting on the right side. I've been hitting up everybody. We got 60 participants. I'd love to get some live fire in here, popcorn and chat if folks have questions.
Yeah, drop them in there. And while we're waiting on that, and there's one in the Q&A here we'll get to in a sec. I'd love if you could elaborate on your triple touch. Because I think it's a really unique idea that it's not just about throwing it in an outreach sequence or a sales life cadence, and then I'm just gonna let that go. You're a whole lot more persistent than that.
Yeah. So the best reps, I've worked with teams of like on a floor where there's like hundreds of SDRs. I've studied in various verticals. They have a saturation. It's actually the saturation of touches because of how mobile's designed. I've been in mobile marketing since 2007. The thing is, no one checks their voicemail, and it's annoying, but I always leave the voicemail, because if they get the voicemail, they get an alert on their phone, it buzzes. And then if you email, they get another alert. And then, so what it is it's tight touches. It's call, voicemail, email. The voicemail is like, it's Justin Michael from Acme Company calling you because XYZ similar company is getting this result. I'll follow up with an email. So the purpose of my call is to get to my voicemail. First, my voicemail is to tell you I'm going to email you. And then I email you, and then they see the email, and then they go back and check the voicemail. And so it becomes this virtuous cycle. And that stands out, because if another rep is like mono channel and just sending like emails or just sequencing, and then I found a way to look for signal intent inside sequencers. So I'm running at like very high scales, these personalized sequences, and we go really deep, right? We take these business intelligence systems where we have intel on every mobile app, like their growth rates and their monthly active users, and we screenshot these. And Josh Braun and Beck Holland talk about this. I talk about this in the book. You take 80 companies, like 80 screenshots, make them into code, pull them into Google Sheet, and then you pull them with a CSV and inject them. And so every single email to 80 companies has a different screenshot that pertains with an illumination question. In the book's an example of Cloudera, of using intent data from Bombora, surge data. You see all the accounts that are searching for your, like Hadoop, or searching for big data. You prioritize those. So there's all this really crazy next level stuff that you can do straight out of a sequencer now, and some BI systems that are, I would say, semi-automated. It's not fully automated, but you can personalize at scale, which is really cool. I probably got like down a tangent there.
Yeah, let me pull it back up, because super interesting area to explore, and I definitely want to get there. Dylan had asked, because you were talking about the triple touch of like, phone call, email, phone call, voicemail, phone call, social touch, etc. How are you finding just today, now that everybody's working from home? Are you still finding, are your teams, are your people, are you still finding phone effective?
So Jeremy Donovan, SVP strategy at SalesLoft, just came out with 6 million email data that says, I believe reply rates are 36% down. I'm not sure if it's open rate or reply rate. What I find is Jake Dunlap's update of look at your list and see who's most impacted, or like, let's just say least impacted. I think everyone is impacted, but there are certain verticals that you may be targeting that are growing, right? So you may need to kind of bifurcate who you're targeting right now, and then start to see if you have a real control here, like compared to 4 weeks ago, it's going to be better. I have found that when you add the phone in to these touches, you will see 3 to 5x the response rate by leaving the voicemails. So I always do. And you'll see I can give you a Craig Rosenberg article about this called The Age of Multi-Channel Prospecting is Not Dead. It's referred to in the book. I've got like multiple questions. Can I just bang these out?
Yeah, jump in there.
So, I lost them. Oh,
I got them here. Dimitar is asking about higher email open rates if you're sending them outside working hours.
Yeah, so there's been so many questions about deliverability in massive big data studies, and I think the problem of averages, it just compounds itself to a middle, like, diluted area. I think you need to test it. I'm a huge fan of John Barrow's, like, A/B test everything. Try the shoulders of the day, like 8 a.m. to 9 p.m., 5 to 6 if you're an enterprise. So the EA has gone home, but I would just test all times. Probably not nights and weekends now with everybody home, but actually email campaigns perform really well on Saturday and Sunday if it's hyper relevant, because people are sitting at home with coffee and they don't mind. Mm-hmm. C-level people, there's a pyramid of cadences, which means that like if you're going after very high C-levels, like you send an email to CMO of Verizon, delete. I don't even know if he's got an autoresponder to do that, but you don't want to be doing 8 touches on the C-level. You want to carve off like your top 50 accounts and your top C-levels and just read their article in Wired, read their 10Q, their 10K, like write to them personally. I have a whole batch of people that I will never sequence because it's like, I could flame out the account. Burn notice. How many prospects do you typically have in your funnel that you're putting on this type of cadence, Craig Wallace. So Bridge Group talks about 200 accounts per SDR per quarter, 3 to 5 an account, right? It's about 1,000 contacts per month is what I like to do, superseded over the 80-20 rule. I'll take 20% and I'll small batch manual. First degree, I'll just add them on LinkedIn. I'll hyper-personalize. I might not even sequence. I might have a first degree sequence where I stop the sequencer and inject snippets and personalization. For those of you familiar with the snippets feature, stored templates. Second and third tier, I've got automation. Do you find calling after opens more difficult now everyone is working from home? I'm finding that if you use different platforms, so if you're chatting with someone on LinkedIn, or if you're mid-funnel and down-funnel, you can text a Zoom link. You can drop a Zoom link into your first degree on LinkedIn. We're going to get into like different channels. I'm a heavy power user of WhatsApp and text. That's been a revolution for me. We could talk about it soon on this. Did I catch everyone's question?
Yep. I think one last one from Julie, just in the comments there. She's a recruiter for working in professional services. Any tips for email strategies for that industry?
I think the really big thing is that anything that is like paced in a soft way, like if you have 6 days, 7 days, like I came from an exact target, right? And it was the culture of opt-in. So for it to be B2B outbound email, it has to be frequent and it has to be like short and sweet, like a rep. Because if it starts to look like a newsletter and there's a bunch of links in HTML, first it's going to go in a spam folder and they're going to be like, I didn't even ask to be on this recruiter list. We all know the recruiters that like add everyone on their LinkedIn and no one asked, and like the prospects are just annoyed and they don't do anything. Mm-hmm. That's not a recruiter only problem, by the way. Oh, there's a B. Well, the bees are alive. That's good. May continue. From a perspective, I would just say like enable and offer, give to get. This is another Josh Braun. I'm an amalgam of so many people, but right now, write a best practices of recruiting in your vertical and make it specific and give that away. Don't gate it. A one-pager, a white paper, a case study, something of value that you give. Educate, go for a dialogue, send some statistics and say, well, what do you think of these statistics? I'm not asking for a meeting, not asking for time, not even asking to talk to you. I want an opinion. Let's start a conversation around the interest graph or the economic graph. People are opinionated. They're sitting at home. They're building model ships. They don't know what to do themselves right now. Take up Sudoku or what am I going to do here? Like David Hasselhoff trivia at this point.
There we go. Some people on our team did their own Jeopardy. There's like these online Jeopardy tools, and we've done them for fun, but they initially started by like intro and like how to learn outreach. And they made this like how to use outreach Jeopardy. It was amazing.
Awesome. Well, yeah. John Sapasi says, can you explain sequencing again and how do you implement it with a tool like SalesLoft? So the category is now defined as sales engagement, and I'm greatly honored because Forrester, which releases a wave, has an analyst now for this, and I may be interviewed for this. So I'm very honored to be a part of the conversation of the future of sales, and that was actually something we should cover, Colin, because I can tell you where the future is going because I've seen it, like 2035, 2050. Ray Kurzweil, singularity type stuff. But like 101, if you just want to set up your SalesLoft or set up your outreach, I recommend 2 books. One is Leading Sales Development, and it's some of the team at SalesLoft, and then also Sales Engagement, which is some of the team at Outreach. Those are kind of the 2 major sales engagement platforms. Sequencer and sequences is sort of an outreach word, and then cadences is a SalesLoft word, and then plays is a Zant word. Zant has gotten involved. That's insidesales.com. There's a predictive thing. So as far as setting it up, basically what you're doing is you're getting email addresses and you're building out emails in advance, a certain amount of touches over a certain amount of days, and then you're pre-programming the sequencer to send out the emails for you outbound. Just imagine like a HubSpot for inbound or a Marketo or drip marketing, you're turning it outbound. And so you have to be careful about this, depending if you're in Europe or in Canada or in the US and with changing legislation. But most of these systems are privacy by design, GDPR, CCPA compliant. And we're still in a free market economy, and B2B sales is the engine. So if you have value and you're not literally spamming, meaning you're just buying millions of lists and sending everyone a blast, but you're targeting one by one and you're making sure that message is tailored, more so now than ever, then this is a best practice, especially in leading high growth companies.
Justin, I'd love if you could to just dive into specifically within the sequencing. What does it look like when you write an email?
Yeah, so I got really inspired from some stuff from Lee Bartlett and the #1 bestseller. When I came on board at some of these companies, the emails were really long. I found Shakespeare to be right. Brevity is the soul of wit. I found that like 1 to 3 word title and 2 to 3 sentence body performs the best. Because you think of it on an iPhone or an Android, you've got the title and then the preview text, and that's going to be the litmus test for when they click. Right? I once had an entire opt-in CRM and just put like VIP party next week, who should be on the list, and set a single one-liner as the subject line with an opt-out. No one could tell it came out of sequencer. I had like 700 responses within 2 hours. And some of these were like august CEOs of companies that hadn't responded in years. So short, painfully short. When you're doing outbound prospecting, it should look like text messages. It should be broken up. You should do pattern interrupts. Someone's real buttoned up C-level. Test spectrums. If someone's very conservative and buttoned up, try, hey, John. Try to be colloquial and informal with the formal. Serious to funny, formal to informal, grammatically perfect, bad grammar, misspell. Wow, she misspelled. It's not a sequencer. That one's really controversial out there in the book, but I got in trouble for that one before.
Yeah. Man, the amount of hate mail that we've gotten on in the email list, because Aaron would write in lowercase, no capitalization, no punctuation. There'd be spelling mistakes. And he's like, I know there's spelling mistakes. I'm human. I sent it out. We get people who go nuts over that stuff. But yeah, you're engaging with it.
Huge conversion rate from just moving from hi to hey. I actually end every email with thank you. It's 20% conversion increase on big data studies. So every email I ever send from now on for the rest of my life is thanks. It's funny. So you see like 8 touches that I'll say thanks. I also use tap outs because I really don't believe in used car sales. Everything is like, if it's a fit, if it makes sense to talk, how does your calendar look? So all my CTAs are like weasel words or like tap outs, like tapping them out. Like I'm just going like, hey, this might be a fit. Maybe it works for you. Not, you're Coca-Cola. Of course my product works for you, right? You got to think of this like scarcity and desirability and non-hunger and disinterest. You can't, calls to action shouldn't be lockdowns like Glengarry Glen Ross. Like, is it going to be Tuesday at 2 p.m. or Thursday at 11 p.m.? So a lot of the schools of thought that prevail on this stuff just don't work. And I tested it, so I know for sure.
Yeah, I mean, I think the thought, like, if we do a thought experiment, right, what's going to work better? Like, if you're approaching somebody at a conference, if you stand up and you're toe to toe and you're 6 inches from their face and you're like, hey, I think my product's a great fit for you. Let's find some time to meet. Right. Or you're standing a little bit more casually. You're not right in their face. You're like, hey, this is what we do. Is it like, that might be a good fit for you. Make sense? Right? Like,
totally.
One is going to be super obnoxious and you're going to peel away. And the other one is, you're jumping right on that.
Yeah. So if you get a chance to check out Scott Britton, who created a technology called Troops.ai, which is like a Slack activation. It sits in your Slack and dovetails and does automation between Salesforce and Slack. It's totally cool. But before he did that, he worked for Single Platform. And it got bought by Constant Contact. I think it hit a $100 million valuation. He had like a board where he wrote 250 clients and he closed like 90% of them. And he put all his tactics in something called like cracking cold emails. So I studied that, studied Josh Braun. Another guy that I love is Brian Kreuzberger. And if you've ever gotten an email that said appropriate person, that is the Kreuzberger. Now my buddy is like, I think his like best friend out in Brooklyn. I think he's in LA now, a marathon guy. So he's kind of a genius in a lot of ways, the waterfall technique. I put some of his techniques in here. Mm-hmm. The thing about TQ in my book is it's a meta framework. You can pick up this book in 2030 and learn these platforms. It's thinking how to think with advanced sales automation technology. It's not necessarily here are the features and functions of this UI UX. It's how you can think of UI and UX as a meta framework axiomatically, right? So if you think about something like appropriate person, what are you really doing? You're routing. And so if you have these templates and they make sense, do not use them verbatim. This is the best template because every SDR, every AE in the world is using it. So what I did is I created rubrics and meta frameworks around the writing of the gist and the concepts. I even turned it into imagery and Venn diagrams. And a really fascinating part of this book is visual prospecting. There's a outfit called Dogpatch Advisors, and they do a lot of the HTML script, right? They're going to go and send a robot to the website of all 100 companies they're targeting and pull in their logos and pull in screen scrapes and like basically make all the emails programmatically visually different. Visuals are 60,000 words of information. So I started to do these emails where I send one email to the chief digital officer of McDonald's, boom, meeting. One email to the head of mobile at Home Depot, boom, one like meeting on the first email. So I did a lot of experiments, and it's because the best thing I can share with everyone on the call is the dynamics of email and the dynamics of calling are fundamentally broken, bar none, because of neurology, neuroscience, right? Like when you're talking to a person, it's all tone. It's 80% tone and body language. So when you're on the phone, if you give me a bad script, like a C- script, and I convey it with a ton of confidence, I'll sell. If I give you an A+ script and you're really like unconfident and insecure, you won't sell. What is email? As you read, your mind is making imagery. So that's why like a company like Cloud App, I always promote Scott and Cloud App. I've worked with them. It's so rad because you can take little like snippets and GIFs of wow factor moments in your tech, and you can take it from commodity to like a visual, like, whoa. You can take those wow moments from your demo and put them in line and nest them into your sequence. And then you're kicking off the right brain, and then you're telling a story, and then you're visually doing what hundreds of emails couldn't do. So I think that's a huge takeaway in the book too, and in my experiments.
Beautiful. We had a follow-on question from John about A/B testing and cadences. So what are some of the best practices that he could take to get his BDR team to start A/B testing?
Yeah, so pretty much all the cadence tools, all the sales engagements tools will allow you to have variants. Like I'm working with an amazing AE now who's formerly an SDR, and I brought him in as an AE because he's one of the best in the world at working with outreach. And so he'll send 8 variations of the first subject line and 8 variations of the first email in the experiment. He'll cohort that out and send it. So within SalesLoft and outreach and within Xant, there are ways to automatically place A/B tests inside the tooling, almost like if this, then that. And there's ways to distribute those across different segments. There's even ways that if you're getting replies, you can automatically take all the replies into a different sequence. And now we're talking about the future. The future is you take every campaign, and by persona, you have like 5 or 6 experiments running, and then you have a more sophisticated and smarter analytics system. Because here's some of the flaws in this technology. Hey, boss, wow, I'm getting high reply rate. Well, that's great. When you analyze the sentiment, this campaign has 20% open rate and 40 replies, and 39 are remove. Well, that's not very good. So what Outreach has built, Outreach is investing in artificial intelligence, machine learning experts to do sentiment analysis and reply analysis. Autoresponders. You hit 50 autoresponders. It automatically takes the email, the referral, automatically sends an email to the people referred in the autoresponder. When you think of the future of this technology, you think of what it can do. And that's why I talk about Xant and Inside Sales, because they had a product called Neurolytics previously at Inside Sales, where they analyzed millions of calls. What is predictive analytics across these cadences? It's this. I open my CRM. Who is the most likely person today to call? I'm going to call that person from a local presence area code in Texas. I'm going to call that person 3 times, send 2 in-mails and an email. And like a baseball card, I know that they usually close at 25.3K ACV. Prediction. Automation, right? Next right action. Almost like business process management, like a Pegasystems or like a really advanced Salesforce automation. That's the future of where this tech is going to go.
Love it. If we could pull it up a level here, Craig is asking sort of how many touches. I know you covered this a little bit, but we're going fast. So maybe just a quick refresher. So how many touches in a cadence, how long, and then how do you modify it for different persona levels?
Yeah, the thing is there's no hard and fast rules for any of this stuff. It's even style. Like I know Jeremy Donovan did the Fibonacci sequence. I've seen this stuff wildly vary. You know, I tended to do narrative arcs. I'll have like theme 1 and I'll send like, an email and then bump it a couple times, whether you're in Gmail or Outlook. And then I'll switch to a different value prop and I'll have a different subject line, a different email, and I'll bump it a couple times. And I'll do it every 48 hours. I got other people that are diehard. It's 1 through 7-11. That's it. That's the golden mean. That's the magic formula. Really be open to A/B testing, because you read statistics out of the Bridge Group or out of Topo, and what it's doing is it's looking at thousands of campaigns and it's watering it down to this median. They say 8 to 12 touches, right? But if you use visual prospecting elements, you might start to set on the 2nd or 3rd touch. If you start entering the phone in on top of your sequences, or if you start tiering out your accounts, you can see success a lot faster, which is what combo prospecting was all about. There's also if you don't have any of this tech and you just have, a pen, a paper, a Gmail, and a phone, that's the beauty of combo, but it's getting harder and harder and harder to get the direct lines. Like companies like Target, they just shut the switchboard. And that's why you see companies like ZoomInfo, my chimes. They're like Zoom. So I guess it was DiscoverOrg, RainKing, and then DiscoverOrg and RainKing went to ZoomInfo and then Datanyze. But there's these big bundle ups and conglomerations because You're in Navigator, you're in Sales Navigator, the Bloomberg terminal. You know exactly who you have to contact. You've done the research and have the personalization. You want to put them in your sequencer. You want to email them, but it's so hard to get that contact data now.
Totally. And so Craig had a follow-on question, which is who's creating the templates? Because I agree with you there. There's no science. And if you're just following the bridge group averages, then your results are going to be just average, right? You need to test, you need to make up some of your own rules. You need to create some of your own hypotheses.
Yeah. So, oh man, this question is who's making the templates?
Yeah. Who creates the templates? Who creates the messaging?
It's like the SDR manager will run it through marketing, run it through legal, run it through the CRO, run it through the SVP. There's a kind of like an outline and template and rubric, depending on how big your company is. You don't want to run wild. I'm one of the first people I think I've ever seen in this book talking about one-on-ones between managers and reps, where the AEs are doing sequencing and the SDRs are doing sequencing. Some of my best CEOs are like, your SDR should only feed you 40%. 60% is you yourself hunting. And I think a lot of people in the field, they could rely on that next event, that next dinner, that next conference. They didn't really have to figure this tech out for themselves. And now they're sitting at home in this paradigm of inside sales only and WebEx and Zoom only. And, can we close these 7-figure deals fully remote? Well, we have to, right? So, yeah, that's kind of my answer for today.
Beautiful. We got a couple more questions here. I did want to ask, because we've talked a lot about channels, and there's, obviously there's the phone, there's email, there's social. I'm curious about if we open this up, because we've got callers in from Dubai, we've got callers in from Australia. What channel, where do deals get done around the world? What channels are they getting done on? Pull it outside of North America here.
Yeah, so WhatsApp really came to the fore with me because there's about 100% adoption in Tel Aviv in Israel. Basically, it was very expensive in the 90s and 2000s to have 2000 or aughts to have broadband internet in Europe. So they became mobile first and really an emerging market and way ahead, and Asia Pac way ahead. So you find like chat platforms, like in certain industries, like Skype, like WhatsApp, like even Facebook Messenger is where deals are getting done. There's actually prospecting happening on these channels. My thing with these platforms is they are a little bit more personal. So I like to make sure that I've had like a cursory introduction. Like normally, like I meet them at an event, a conference, like I know them in person, but now in this environment, they've connected with me on LinkedIn, but we've talked. We've had an initial conversation, because just because you're connected to me for Instagram, LinkedIn, I have 27,000 connections and 35,000 connections across platform. I don't consider that I know you. I don't consider that I have a right to text you or WhatsApp you. However, if we start talking about a discussion topic, I might just move it to WhatsApp or move it to text message, and from there, it's more organic. I've been watching people recently running their entire business off a phone, off of text message, and my head is going to explode. Like I did a deal in the middle of the night with Singapore over Skype. He came in as inbound lead. I pinged him, "What's your Skype?" Had Fidelity. And then going back and forth in Skype in the middle of the night and did this deal. And it's because business can happen anywhere now in the global village. And, there's been a lot's been changing in America, and other countries are, beyond the arc we're in now. And so I'm testing things globally on many time zones right now to ensure that I can find the buying windows. And that opens up a whole conversation around the science of trigger event selling. I will say this: the reason you grow broad and you use this technology is because of Steve Richard and the Chet Holmes research. 3% of any market is looking to buy now. 40% will entertain switching. During a crisis, maybe 2%, maybe 35%, or maybe it just all moves into the entertain and you can plant seeds. But commerce will help happen no matter where the Dow goes, no matter where the unemployment goes. Something is growing. Someone's in a buying window. And so the reason, if you look at my resume, it's like a cheetah. Like I get in, I get really fast results. I do a lot. And it's because I use automation and I hit the whole TAM. Like people go one by one. I'm going to hit the entire total addressable market. I'm going to locate the trigger events of job changes and money now. And I'm going to close the deals that are in the market right now. Now you could call that cherry picking or low hanging fruit, but that's what this tech allows you to do. If I can do 3 deals in 60 days, where someone else is going to take 6 to 18 months, and I've broken the sound barrier on 6 and 7 figure deals for SaaS and for enterprise and for decreasing ACVs, I've done stuff that's totally alien. And they're kind of like, I don't believe you did it. I'm like, okay, call my GM, call my last manager, call me out, back channel me. Right. And because there's so much insane pressure, you have teams that have been grinding for years to try to get the deal. So I'm looking for the person that is in market now. And I've talked a lot with Craig Elias from Shift and Tibor Shanto. And at the end of the day, it's not necessarily the triggers, because it's very hard for an enterprise to deploy capital now after the first GFC, and now like buy $1 million piece of software in the first 90 days. Here's what is possible. Find your deadwood, find everyone that's bought from your company ever, and map those people into LinkedIn, because they have grown up on your tech. They've advanced in their company politically by becoming masters of your technology system. They've bought before. Just go find them. Sell to champions who understand your software. I call it like the diaspora of your former customers. That's how I trigger events sell, and that's why that works.
Beautiful. I love it. I think that's 100% one of the most underused tactics. It's something that is like I used to do as an AE when even before LinkedIn was like really a thing, is you just call up your old customers, you find out, oh, so-and-so went to a new company, you track them down, you give them a call. Like this is back when Zoom Info was like, I don't know if they were even around, but I remember using like Info USA to try and do this. That's how long I've been doing it, like the phone book or the actual, like when they finally went online. We've got somebody anonymous is asking, how do we, maybe this is anonymous, the group. They're asking, how do you get people to reply to your emails? And actually, it's sounding like from an actual conversion standpoint, not just take me off your list.
Okay. I have so many questions coming right now. The name of my book is Technology Quotient, or TQ. It is not released. I'm going to release it on HarperCollins. My co-writer is published on HarperCollins. Because of Corona, I have released it early because we're all sitting at home trying to figure this out. I think it can help people. So it's free for now if you buy it later, if you like it. So ping me on LinkedIn to get my book. Books that I read and love, I'll do in a moment. Your question was about email responses and analytics. Can you tell me one more time? Sorry.
Yeah. How do you get people to reply to your emails and like actually convert into meetings?
Yeah, so reply management, reply specialization is very important. All responses are good responses, negative or positive. You have to have a sentiment analysis operation, pull all the replies manually into a shared Google spreadsheet, call people that reply, and try to convert them on the phone or nudge them. So if you see high opens, inside the sequence, you can do a temporary one-off reply. I call that a nudge. And that's a way that you can like hand pick and kind of spearfish folks that are like interacting with your sequences and content. And then they'll come in, 75% of them will look at your LinkedIn. So you have to have an optimized LinkedIn profile and really be working with them when they look in. So other authors I've mentioned, Fanatical Prospecting by Jeb Blount. I've talked about different blogs from Craig Rosenberg and Topo Research, TOPO.
There was the 2 books from Sales Often Outreach. I think it was Leading Sales Enablement.
Yeah, I don't want to list the authors because there's like double authors and I don't want to play favorites here, but one is called Leading Sales Development. I know Jeremy Donovan's involved with that. And then Sales Engagement, which is Max Altschuler of Sales Hacker, and then also Manny Medina and also Mark Casaglo. And those are 2 super good books for like getting the feet wet in this stuff. I've kind of been dubbed the voice of the sales engagement generation just because I've taken it so far. And my book is a power user manual. Read those books also. There's some great power use cases, but my stuff presupposes that you have the stack, you use the stack, and you understand. This is the 202, the 303. This is as far as we can possibly push the technology. Because what I was hired to do was to break it, to make an SDR operator out of an artificial intelligence to replace a human being, to pass the Turing test, to create sequences that are so human and so personalized that the person on the other end can't figure that out. Like Google Duplex, where they can call a restaurant, you can't tell that it's like natural language processing and it's an artificial intelligence. It's not going to go away. At the end of the day, like AI is going to replace all the manual tasking, right? The theory is that the buyer and the seller will be a robot, almost like a stock exchange, like happening in real time. And your CRM will just hand you a discovery call. So these like legions of sellers are just going to be going back to inside sales and field sales. And a lot of this will happen like holographically or over Zoom. You know, this is the future. Recommended reading list. It's so long. There's like hundreds of different books. But if your goal is cracking top funnel, I think Combo Prospecting, which is Tony J. Hughes, Fanatical Prospecting. I love Mike Weinberg. The 2 books I mentioned on sales engagement, Predictable Revenue, of course, Predictable Prospecting by Mary Lou Tyler. I called a digital exec in an enterprise and his voicemail said to send a text. I sent him a digital and asked who sends SMS. He replied and got the meeting and he laughed. And then sent him a WhatsApp message and he replied from the EU, not in the US. Interesting.
Awesome. We've got got one from Ben here. So that's awesome. That's I think that's Graham from Australia there. Ben was asking just about the books, but then he also was curious about leveraging the voice message and video messages in LinkedIn, and how does that sort of fall into your strategy?
Yeah. So there's all these hidden Easter eggs. So first, it's like, I think Jake Dunlap was pointing out that there's an insignificant response rate by actually personalizing your invites on LinkedIn, especially if you have like a mega network. However, it's more like branding. But once your first degree inside the native LinkedIn app, you can hit this little microphone button and leave a voicemail inside LinkedIn. It's novel. It's hardly being used. And I'd say that for InMail, use all 50 of your InMails, because they do convert higher than email. People just send 4 and they're like, it doesn't work. Send them all. I promise you it works. I've had the chief product officer from the biggest news company. I've had a lot of success there. Another, like, I call these exotic platforms because they're just not used. You can go into LinkedIn, and like I do my daily videos every day, and you can record a message just like this, great fidelity, off your handset, and just say like, hey, Colin, here I am, living color, like, and just leave the message. Prospect your whole funnel in thirds, and anything middle to low funnel, start to experiment with WhatsApp, Facebook Messenger, and text. You will be amazed. 100% response rate on the text.
Beautiful. We've done some testing, and I'm going to just reiterate something you mentioned earlier, which is don't start cold with text or WhatsApp. You got to have that conversation first. And if you do, you're going to have great conversion rates. If you're starting cold, you're going to get very negative responses. It'll be 100% and it'll be 100% negative.
Yeah. It's really interesting because, I've really never had any problems with outbound, because the minute someone says, do not contact, do not remove, there's this funny response where you would run these quad campaigns like Cruiseberger, and you'd send the same email to 4 people and they'd all forward it around. It's like the art of confusion. It was brilliant. It worked at a certain time. But we're in the empathy age, right? We don't want to inconvenience our prospects. Sometimes they write back, they're like, hey, Justin, take me off the list. And I'll use this one. I'll be like, you're not on my list. I opened Sales Navigator. I did a search for this parameter. You came up, and I just sent this email to you myself just now. And then sometimes be like, hey, remove me, dude. But, at the end of the day, I really am trying to do micro targeting and batch targeting right now, and just start conversations. Build a diagram and say, well, what do you think of the implications of this diagram? Like a Venn diagram. It's a really interesting strategy. I have friends on the phone here who've worked with me and know that it cuts like a hot knife.
Yeah. This is hilarious. Anonymous is back in the Q&A and asking basically the next thing that was on my list to ask you about, which is email deliverability. Some emails never even make it into prospects' inbox. I'd argue some emails never make it out of your inboxes. And if they make it into the spam bot, in the junk folder or whatnot. So what are your thoughts on email deliverability? How do we do this right? How do people get it wrong?
Yeah, it's a moving target. My buddy Sam Feldato wrote in on my book. So the crazy thing about the book is like 400 people in there. And if you leave a comment, I annotate you and I put it in. I believe in Wikinomics and crowdsourcing. I just want the most cutting edge stuff to help all of you on the phone and the world, everybody reading it. So it's truly differentiated. Like, I want it to be the predictable revenue of its generation of the 2020s, the way that predictable revenue was from the 2010s. And that, Aaron and Colin have taken that so much further, and they've evolved it. And so you have to follow the evolution of that book. It's amazing and impossible and inevitable. But deliverability, right? It is a moving target, and you really need to comply with what a normal human would do. That's the key. Just think about a person that sits down and makes 100 cold calls and sends 100 emails. That's about what you're going to get out of a Gmail. You can feather it. You can get multiple Gmails. You can sideload a domain. So you can take predictablerevenue.com, .co, .biz. You can go all day. But these are algorithms and big data, and you're up against Google, like the smartest machine learning experts ever, right? So there are really cool governance tools inside SalesLoft and Outreach and Xant and the other ones where you can do this. My whole sales team of 5 reps is doing sequences, and IBM's a target. Well, what if all 5 send to IBM? Well, IBM's spam array is going to see 5 messages from your domain and is going to blacklist your domain. Also, there's a bunch of known addresses if you have a deliverability expert where you can test for honeypots and spam catches.
What are your favorite ones there? What do you like to use?
I don't know. I mean, it changes all the time. I actually have like experts for delivery on these subjects that keep me informed, like a data czar guy. His name's Greg Meyer. He's just like one of these, quant gurus of deliverability. But basically what you have to do is you have to make sure you don't email something that is a test for spam. First, like, make sure you're legitimately doing business and you're honestly operating. And then warm domains. You can't just start sending, well, Outreach's limit is 1,000 a day. Yeah, but you're sending it through Outreach, through your corporate Gmail. And the minute you do a 500 send or 1,000 send, it'll shut you off. And so I'll go, see companies and ask me these questions like, their core domain has been dinged, their deliverability is low. And then there's a lot of really advanced stuff like DKIM, and it can go forever. Colin, do you have thoughts on this, or who's got a good blog about it?
Yeah. We've got a couple that I can maybe link afterwards, but basically, right now I would recommend, like you're talking about, high quality. The subdomain thing worked really well for a time, but it's exceptionally hard to do right now, and it's exceptionally hard to do right unless you know what DMARC, DKIM, SPF sort of stand for and why they were implemented. I wouldn't recommend them at all. I would just say throttle it down, maybe give your SDRs 2 email accounts off of your main domain, have them be good and be smart about it. Because if you're looking, like Google is looking at your reputation. They're looking at you as a group of humans, and are you having conversations, or are there 10 of you and shouting at everybody and nobody's responding back? They're shutting down the people that are standing and shouting and nobody's responding to them, right? It's all about the quality game. And if you're not sending quality, you're going to get just destroyed. The thing with, if you got 10 people that are shouting, and they're shouting on your main domain, and they've got, maybe there's 100 or 200 people on your sort of the parent domain, predictablerevenue.com. Well, then there's a ton of traffic coming back and forth. And so the shouting kind of gets muted a little bit. But when you spin up these new domains specifically for prospecting, it's just 10 people shouting out in the open. It's very easy for Google to see that. And it's very similar behavior to what like the high profile spammers are doing, which is called snowshoeing, where they spin up thousands of domains and they only send 5 or 10 emails because they know the first 5 or 10 emails have great deliverability before they get shut down. And so the trick here is like, you want to give your team access to the volume that you need, but you don't want to look like a spammer, right? Because those things are going to just increase your risk profile. And so my advice would be, follow best practices, make sure you have a really strong response and positive response rates. And then I would do it off your parent domain. Give your SDRs, if you're really, really struggling and email as a channel is really working, maybe 2 domains to spread the volume between the 2, but 2 email accounts, but you probably don't need to. If you're following the double, the triple, the quad, the quant touches, you probably shouldn't be reliant on email. So that's my 2 cents there.
That is so phenomenal. I was going to say, people are just asking me for this book, TQ. I'm not able to chat it back. It looks like I have to answer it live. So yeah, so the book that has visual prospecting techniques is mine. I've never seen that anywhere. It's called TQ. If you just ping me on LinkedIn, Justin Michael, I will then add you to the book. It's that easy. Comment, view, and you can comment. There's hundreds of people in there, thousands reading it. The riches are in the niches, right? What I used to do, so I had this aerospace company come to me before the engineers studied my brain. This is about 10 years ago. And they're like, okay, we're out of aerospace. We're going to map your 2nd and 3rd degree connections on LinkedIn, and we're going to set qualified appointments. And it worked. And suddenly I had like 12 appointments a day. I was like, wow, this is just insane. And we were paying a pretty high fee for it. It was almost like an FTE. And then the guy came to me and goes, we've burned out your TAM. So we had hit the known universe, because the Fortune 1000, there's only so many prospects, right? So you don't really want to pick a target addressable market where there's, maybe you're SMB or mid-market, but at a certain point, you should really make sure that like you have a certain focus and you can prioritize those top 20% of the companies that are most similar to ones you have, and make sure you're operating at scales. This isn't about manipulative tactics or fooling Google or trying to pass the Turing test. It's really about these standards are just being sent to prevent the prospects from having a bad experience. And that's why LinkedIn, one of the reasons I talk about this so much in my book, is LinkedIn is a closed API. It doesn't want you to do programmatic automation or automatic sending or blasting, because all the C-levels would leave. So on LinkedIn, that's the channel to take the time, read their whole LinkedIn profile, skim it, take 90 seconds, make a phone call, send something targeted. Just the thing is, like, it's like outrunning the bear. There's 1,000 people outrunning the bear. You just don't be the one in front of the bear, right? If you're at least different than the other 999 people who connect and pitch, if they can tell you even read anything, they're going to be blown away. Because I can tell you, like, every day I get like 20, 30 messages that are like, I see that you want to drive revenue. Bullet. It's like, of course I do. Yeah. I see you're fogging a mirror. Do you want, these 25 bullet parts? That's the normal message still. And it's sort of like diminished the network. Are there any last questions before we get off? 3 minutes here?
I think we got the emails delivered piece that's sorted. It seems like you've got some private ones. If anybody's got last questions, throw them in. We've probably got time for one last one. I do want to pivot here. Justin, I did throw your LinkedIn in the chat there. So I would like everybody to take a minute, hit up that link, go talk to Justin on LinkedIn, add him. If you want to be part of the book, ask him to share that out. You can also, Julie, just hit that link. It's right above you there. Fantastic.
Yep.
And I just, just as we're wrapping up here, Justin, I'd love us to just tell us a little bit more about the book. So what does it cover? You've talked about sort of the super user manual for all these different texts, all these different tools, all these different tactics. What's your goal here?
So there's two things. One, I'm about democratization of technology. So I want to make sure that for every category, everyone is represented so that when you go look for technology within your budget, within your sweet spot, it's all represented there, almost like a buyer's guide. Two, I want to encourage adoption. If you have tech stacks, dust them off, use them now, because I believe this can make you 5% better, like Kaizen, right now, just by using the tech you have, whether it's HubSpot, Salesforce, whatever it is, you have some kind of automation system now. You'd be surprised. So go uncover it. And then thirdly, I'm just trying to help you be the best you can be by leveraging technology. I've found that the meta skill that's going to give me the edge is this tech. We have to embrace it or be replaced by it. And that's technology quotient. It's our ability to learn how to learn, and being open to improving our TQ will allow us to become one with the tech stack, right? Become a little more cyborg, but a little more human. And so as you use this, think of humane ways to use it, because it's going to allow you to amplify yourself and have superhuman productivity compared to the manual way that you may have been doing this before. For those of you that this is like totally common, obvious, it's on the call, like you're going to love this book too, because all the advanced stuff that makes maybe no sense is going to make sense to you. So hit me either way. I will be happy to explain it all, add more chapters, walk you through it. I'm so grateful to be on a webinar with predictable revenue. You're just heroes in my book. So
just, I can't thank you enough. It feels like your book is really designed around the person that wants to be the Tony Starks of the world, that want to be Iron Man. You're teaching us how to build the Iron Man suit, how to fly it. And then the philosophy of like, don't be a dick about it. You can use the suit for being a total dick and wrecking things, or you can use the suit for doing some good. So thank you so much for coming on and showing us how to do it well.
Thank you, everyone. Have a great day. Happy opening.
Thanks, everybody. Stay safe. Wash your hands. Cheers.